Alright, good evening everyone. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. Medyo mag-i-English muna tayo ngayon kasi we got a special guest tonight. He is a familiar guest here in Puro Laro. We actually have two familiar guests here that have been with us in the past. And we have a lot to talk about. We are on part 2 of our so-called Dirty Money. Is the Chinese influence affecting the gaming industry? And also we're going to talk about part 2 of our previous conversation. And most of all, this is our pre-EGS episode. So I'd like to welcome to the mic Chris Natsume from BoomZap. Hey, Chris.
How you doing? Hey, thanks for inviting me back. It's kind of fun to be here. So
yeah, man. You remember you are our first foreigner in the podcast.
The first foreigner. I broke new ice.
I know, right? And Rainier, you all remember him? He's been with us for so long. Hey, Rainier, what's up, man?
Hi, everyone. Kamusta? I'm back.
All right. So, well, first of all, let's talk about BoomZap's preparation for ESGS, man. So, how you guys been doing? You guys are in early access.
Yeah, we're in early access. I was saying before the podcast, I want to shout out to Jobert, who runs the ESGS. I don't think he gets enough credit for bringing a lot of focus to games in the Philippines. It's a good show, actually. ESGS is a pretty well-run show. And I'm proud to say that BoomZap has been there every single year that it's existed.
Yeah, man, that's great.
So I'm sad. I'm not. This is the first year since it started that I'm personally not going to be there. I have just my schedule didn't work out and I can't make it. But we got a full team down there. We're showing Last Regiment, which is in early access now. It's a turn-based strategy game. We've been working on it for a couple years. It was at ESGS last year, and people really liked it. And it's in way better shape now. So I'm really excited to bring that down and show everybody our early access game. So yeah, that's a cool thing.
Yeah, I have to apologize to you that because I haven't still gotten to purchasing it. It's on my wish list though. I was like, all right, I have to get you because I've been itching.
We're setting up a bundle. So here's what you'll do. Wait for the bundle, right? We're doing like a 4-game bundle. I don't know what the discount is. Alan's sorting it out, but there'll be a 4-game bundle where you can actually, because it's a multiplayer game, and we were like, we should sell bundles so people can buy like 4 copies. You can play the game up to I think 8 players. And so we're like, let's get people to buy a bunch of copies so they can play with their friends. So there's a bundle deal coming up pretty soon. It should be up by the time we get to ESGS. We're also going to be selling codes at ESGS at a huge discount. So if you're coming out to ESGS and you're interested in Last Regiment, I forget, I think we're selling like 4 copies for like 900 pesos. It's not a lot of money. We're doing like a deep discount for ESGS. So come over to the booth and we'll sell you some codes.
We'll be there.
Yeah, I never did that before. I've never actually sold codes before, but I was at PAX a couple years ago and I noticed that like everybody at PAX was doing that. And I was like, why don't we do that? So I actually printed up a bunch of little cards and we're going to print out some stickers with codes on it. We're going to sell codes right there on the floor. So if you're interested and you're like, because everybody comes to the booth and they're like, oh man, your game's really great. I'm totally going to buy this. And I'll be like, really? Boom. Here it is right here. Put your money where your mouth is, man.
You guys, BoomZap has been with ESGS for so long. Can you give us how? And Rainier, this is your first year on ESGS, right?
Yes,
this will be your first year presenting. Yeah,
and actually, when I was working in the Chinese company, that Chinese company always goes to ESGS as well. But I was in China, so I never went to ESGS. But our company was there.
Yeah. So Chris, tell us about the atmosphere and how it's evolved through the years and all that. So you want to give a shout out to the SGS.
It's largely been, the same thing every year, just bigger and better every year. Mm-hmm. It's loud. I actually had to yell at Jobert last year. I was like, it is way too loud. You got to do something. So he's promised he's going to do something about the volume this year and bring the decibels down, because it was like walking into the back end of a freight train. It was just so loud in there. But it's got a great atmosphere. It's full of gamers. It's full of people doing cosplay. One of the things I really like is there's I forget what they call it, the Indie Fest or the Indie whatever that they do there, where they bring a bunch of indie. what is that thing called? There's a name for it, and I feel terrible that I don't remember. Someone's going to yell at me later. But they have the Indie Fest there. And a bunch of indies are there. And then one of my favorite parts of ESGS, and this is actually the main reason I'm sad that I'm not going to be there, is they always have a great big student area. And the student area has people coming from, all the schools in the Philippines, all the guys that have game development programs, and the guys bring their games out, and the students sit there and they show you their games. And they're, it's the Philippines. They don't get a lot of chance to like sit at a booth and show people their games, right? There's not a lot of opportunity to do that. So like ESGS gives them this great opportunity to do that. And I actually go there and recruit, I go to the student area, look at all the games and pass my card out. And actually, a couple folks that we hired into the studio last year, you guys may know Javi, who's, kind of an indie darling in the Philippines. We actually hired him out of ESGS. A couple other people I've hired directly out of ESGS because it's just a great place to go meet young people who are really into games. Mm-hmm. What is that? It's Gwen has. I don't know if she's doing it this year, but Gwen did it the last few years. What is the name of that indie thing that's there? It's like indie showcase or something like that. But there's always a bunch of great indie games. So I mean, it's got a great atmosphere because there's kind of the sort of more pro games that have actually bought a booth, and then there's sort of the indie guys in the indie area, and then there's the educational stuff in the educational area, and all of it comes together into kind of a really nice show because you add on top of that. You've got all the actual esports going on and the stages and people playing games. It's a really neat atmosphere. And it's a good venue too. I actually really like the venue because the mall's right next to it. So there's lots of good food.
Like what do you call this? What do you call this, Rainier? It's our Philippine version of a gamer's flea market, right?
It's our version of China Joy.
It's a highly budget China Joy.
It's China Joy. I mean, I've heard of it from Rainier. Is it huge? ESGS is bigger than that?
Good God, no.
No. Okay. China Joy is like huge. It's like probably 3 mall of. It's kind of the whole Mall of Asia cut in 3 sections, and you would see Sony right in front of Xbox. The Blizzard will be so big there. It's huge. It's huge. Yeah.
Maps are good. Sell there.
But I think there's something to be said for because you've got all of Southeast Asia, and there's always a kind of question of like, what's the big convention going to be in Southeast Asia? And I know a couple companies have tried to make it happen in Singapore. But the honest truth is Singapore is not that big a city. It doesn't have nearly as many people as, say, Manila does or Bangkok. And it's expensive. It's costly. I mean, if you want to go to a game show in Singapore, you got to stay in Singapore. It's like $150 a night for a hotel in that place. And so I think there's a very good argument for the big show in Southeast Asia ought to be the show in Manila. It's for all of Manila's faults, it is cheap. Right. I mean, so you can go stay in a nice hotel in Manila for not a lot of money. You're right there in the mall. It's a good location. The show is big. To get a booth at ESGS is not particularly expensive. I think there's and plus I think for esports, the Philippines is one of the most exciting places in Southeast Asia right now. I mean, there's great Philippine teams in esports. Whenever there's the esports event, the Philippines is always very well represented. So I think there's a very good argument for ESGS becoming the China Joy of Southeast Asia. I think there's a hope that it could build into that.
And it looks like it's getting bigger every year. So
every year it's bigger and better. So it's getting there.
Yeah. The Philippines should be like one of the good places here for gaming here in Southeast Asia.
You just look at the population of Metro Manila and how many people there are, right?
There's like about 10 million already.
And they're gamers. That's the thing. There's a whole lot of people, and it's a very game friendly city. So I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't build that convention into something quite large.
Oh hell yeah! I mean, everyone is actually playing. I mean, we're getting to a generation where everyone has actually known games.
Yeah, exactly.
The generation of they didn't play any video games when they were young are very small now compared to those who have actually encountered it when they were very little. So that generation is a huge part of Metro Manila right now. So,
I always tell people the same thing. Like when I was, because I'm old, I'm 46, man. I'm ancient. And when I was younger, you would ask people, do you play video games? That was a valid question. That's not even a question. You don't ask anybody that anymore. You ask, what game do you play? It's assumed that everyone plays games. And you ask, what kind of games do you play? But when I was in my 20s, you couldn't make that assumption. Most people didn't play games. And so it's a very different world now.
I think it's even a reverse now. I mean, you're a unicorn if you actually say that you don't play games. I mean, people.
Oh yeah, it's like, what's wrong with you? Did thumbs not work?
Where were you this past 10 years?
Yeah. What do you do with your spare time? You're not watching TV, are you? Who does that anymore?
So I mean, Rainier. I mean, you're releasing a game this year, or just presenting a game this year, or probably introducing a game this year in ESGS. So how does that feel? I mean, this is your coming out party.
Yes, we're planning to release it next year, but it's still, we're trying to pre-sell it, but this is our start, so we're working on it, and I think it's a good time to join ESGS.
All right. So, I mean, tell us about it. We'll get a scoop from you before you release it to the public in ESGS. Can you tell us a little bit about your game?
Okay. Just a quick one. It's an RPG. So we're going to release it in Filipino, Tagalog, full version in Tagalog, and a version in English. So maybe in Chinese soon, because I speak Chinese. Maybe after that, we'll do that in Chinese. But so it's RPG.
What kind of RPG? What's the setting?
It's the setting is it's gonna parody the BPO industry here in the Philippines. That's all I can say.
Call centers.
So, yes.
Call center RPG. Wow.
Yes. That's something you haven't heard yet. So it hasn't been done. So we'll try to do it. Yeah. So I worked in a call center here. So that kind of give me an idea, and then I'm into games. Hey, maybe we could do something here.
I will buy the +5 headphones of tech support.
I know I'm not gonna spill what's gonna happen there, but there'll be like headsets and headphones. But we'll see how that goes.
I mean, Chris here is a veteran of.
I know. I'm
kind of. I mean. Chris, is there any tips from a fledgling developer that you can give, especially his first time on ESGS?
When Jamie told me you're coming on, Chris, I want to go like, I'm not worthy. I'm
just old. No, I will tell you the best thing about ESGS is, the best thing for a developer, it's the Philippines. You're not going to get that much world press at ESGS. I mean, it's a good show, but it's not. If you think that going at ESGS is going to be the thing that's going to sell a bunch of games, that's not really a thing yet. I hope that it will get to be that way, but it's not a thing yet. What it is really good for, though, is it's really good for watching a bunch of people play your game. It's the other big reason I'm sad I'm not going to be there is because I like to just stand about 10 feet from my booth and just watch people play and see how they interact with the game. I try to make sure that I've got a really nice tutorial, and I try to not tell them anything. If they're interested in the game, I say, well, sit down and play it. And I don't tell them anything about the game. I don't tell them how to play it. Because I want to watch a human being fight their way through my tutorial and see if they get engaged and enjoy the game from that. And it's a really great experience to just people watch and to do that, The first couple times I did ESGS, I went out of my way to like make a big video and show the video on the TV and stuff. And the last couple ESGSs, and this one too, I didn't bother doing that because I just hooked the TV up to one of the computers and I let people watch somebody play. And I found that people are way more interested in watching somebody play your game than they are in watching a video about your game. Because it's really compelling. They walk up and they're like, "Oh, what's going on? What is this?" And they kind of watch for a minute. I will tell you, by the way, I've been to God knows how many conventions, and the big advice that I tell my team at the booth, when they're going to run a booth for me, I always tell them, nobody wants to be sold to at a game convention. Because you know nerds, right? Nerds are like walking around the game convention, and if somebody comes up to them, they're like, "Hey, let me tell you about my game." Blah 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 blah. They get freaked, and they're like, "I'm going to go anywhere but here," right? And
like
so what I do,
somebody beautiful model coming up to them,
maybe, but even then they get weirded out, right?
I'm just kidding, man.
and no one on my team's beautiful, so I don't have any beautiful people. We're game devs. But what we do instead is I say stand a little bit away from the booth and just look at your TV, look at the monitor for your booth as though you were a customer, right? And if you just stand there, it makes your game look kind of interesting because there's somebody standing there watching the game, right? And so somebody will come up sooner or later and they'll stand next to you and watch the game with you, right? And so it's not like you facing them trying to sell the game to them. It's you facing your game. Somebody else comes and stands next to you, and now they're facing your game and watching your game with you. And after they watch it for a couple minutes, you can turn and be like, "Hey, by the way, you know, I made this." And now they can't get away, right? Because they've already shown an interest and they're standing right next to you. So now you kind of got them trapped. And now you can be like, "Hey, why don't you play it?" You know, and then you can get them to play the game. That's how I run a booth at a game convention.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. I think that's correct because people want to play it rather or see other people play it rather than just like looking at them trailer or something. They want to like see somebody actually play it. And
they just really don't want to be sold to. The last thing they want is somebody coming up and getting in their face and giving them a big sales pitch. Let me tell you all about my game. That's not really compelling for anybody. But you know, to sit there and watch the game, and if they've watched it for a minute or so, then they're interested. Then hey, maybe they might be interested in talking to the developer about it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I see people they get really tired and they waste a lot of energy at convention, like really selling their game hard. Don't do that, like, because all you're doing is just wasting energy and scaring people away. Because most of the people who come by your booth, they're probably not interested in your game. Because I mean, most people aren't interested in all games. You got to find your audience. So just kind of be a little bit laid back, see who comes by your booth, and the people who are interested, stop those guys and be like, hey, now that I've seen that you watched my game a minute, let me tell you a little bit about it. And then you're actually using your energy on people that might actually buy your game. So that's my big suggestion. That's how I teach my teams to run a booth at a game convention.
No, yeah, that's good to know, man. Thanks.
So do you think this is really something that is, shall we say, a selling point to the generation now? Meaning seeing people play games and all that is much more appealing to them than whole slideshow presentation how your game is, or even a trailer. Because we're seeing that in streaming right now, right?
Kids these days have been sold to so much. They know, right? They know when they're being sold to. Like, this is the most marketing aware generation in the history of the earth, right? And they're really adverse to it. You can see it when people try to sell them stuff and people get commercial on them. They get real defensive and they don't like you very much. And so, the big suggestion I have for young developers is just be real. Just be who you are. Be real. Don't try to be somebody who's trying to sell. Don't put on a character or anything. Just be real. And reality sells. That's what you see on Twitch and on stream, and you can see that people are interested in people who treat them like real people and don't treat them as somebody they're trying to sell crap to.
Wow. Yeah, because that's what most developers have to attend like a marketing seminar or whatnot just to actually learn to sell their games. But you're actually saying that talking to their people that are also gamers is actually much more effective, right? You know who your audience is because you're a gamer, right? You know how you want to be talked to. Talk like that. It's not magical. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the people who watch YouTube doesn't want the ads anyway, and they kind of block that, right? Keep it. Yeah, they don't want to ad in front of them. So, but they want to learn. If it was a game, they want to learn it more from like a review or somebody playing it. Same thing.
No, I think the whole rise of podcasts and live streams and all that as entertainment in general comes from this generation's need to see something real. You know, everything they get is so marketed and so processed. I mean, go to Hollywood and look at the movies that they show in Hollywood. All these, you know, Marvel Comics movies that they spent a gajillion dollars on, and every last second has been, you know, they've had people look at every moment of this product, and you know how many focus groups and and at some point, like everything is just so unreal in our world. But you know, if you turn into a live stream and you see, you know, somebody is sitting at a microphone playing a game and talking, that feels really real to them. And I think that's what people are drawn to in this generation, because they just don't get a lot of reality in their world.
I agree. I mean, a person who's actually playing a game that you're just watching, and you're just used to just people watching play games and all that, and then suddenly they actually talk to you. Hey, thanks for the follow. Thanks for that. I think that's pretty real for a lot of the generations today, and we didn't get to experience that in our time. I mean, we just watched one of those games that people are just hosting and everything, but now they can actually interact with today's technology and all that. So, yeah, that's a good tip, Rainier. I mean, to interact. This is your first time, so
yeah. I think that's actually what we're gonna try to do. We don't have like a fancy trailer and all that, so we'll just probably. But I think I got some like friends from schools that I'll invite to play the game. So I think that's a good way to do it.
I mean, it sounds terrible, but I mean, my big advice for conventions is like, just kind of lower your expectations a little bit. Like, just don't worry about it. You're not going to sell a bunch of games at the convention. You're not going to get to the end of the convention and be like, oh, we showed up on Kotaku and got 1 million hits. Like that's not going to happen. Right. So just like, don't stress out about it. Go enjoy it. Enjoy watching people play your game. You know, try to kind of, you know, see what they're doing and use that as an experience to, you know, watch people play
feedback, right? It's free feedback that you won't get anywhere else. I mean, this is raw feedback from people who actually play the games, except from this is free QA testing if you ask me.
Yep, it's exactly what it is.
You don't have to. I mean, that's R&D in itself, and you're not. You're just paying for a booth. Well, given now that, I mean, it's pretty hard to actually, I mean, you've talked in our last guesting and everything on how hard is it to actually sell games now. I want to go back to our main topic here, which is probably one of the reasons why it's hard to sell a game, and you're still developing the game as it is. You're running out of money and all that. You've been there, Chris. You've been with huge development companies and everything. What do you think is the reason why some studio actually goes and probably give out almost all of their shares to a conglomerate like Tencent? I mean, what do you think is the main reason there?
No mystery to that. Money. I mean, there's no deep mystery in that. Here's the thing. You have a couple ways to fund making a game, right? Number one, you have a lot of money, or you're willing to live really poor, and that's a legitimate way to make games. There's games on Steam that were made by a couple guys in their garage that had a part-time job somewhere, and they ate a lot of biscuits and they made it happen. And I always tell people in the Philippines, you should look real hard at that, because the Philippines is a cheap place to live, right? You can make a couple $100 a month go a long way in Manila, a lot longer than you could in a place like San Francisco or Tokyo, right? Yeah. Which I think is a real strategic advantage for people working in the developing world. The other way you can fund a game is you can go out and get a publisher to fund your game. And usually when you get a publisher to fund the game, they're going to get the ownership of the intellectual property and a lot of rights over what's going to happen. And you're not going to be able to make your game anymore. You're now making their game, so you don't have the kind of creative freedom that you would have had if you made it yourself. But it's a good place to get money. And if both of those fail, if you can't fund it yourself and you can't find a publisher to fund it, sort of your third way is to go get a real live investor. And I think most people misunderstand what it means to get an investor. I think a lot of people get real excited. They're like, oh my God, I had somebody invest $1 million in my company. I'm like, well, they didn't invest $1 million in your company. They bought most of your company for $1 million. And that's not your $1 million. That's the company's $1 million. And probably they took enough controlling share in your company that they're going to say how that $1 million is going to get spent. So it's not really your $1 million, right? Now maybe you get to go along for the ride. Maybe you still own a reasonable percentage, or maybe even a controlling interest. But you now have a business partner for the lifetime of that studio, and that business partner is not going to have the same goals as you. They, the VC companies don't get into video game companies because they love video games, right? They get into it because they think they're going to make some money. And the minute that they figure out that they can make money making a game that you don't want to make, well, that's too bad. That's what you're going to make now. And you can see this in a lot of people that are, I know a lot of people that work for companies that are VC funded that are making free-to-play games, and they hate making free-to-play games. But right now, that's what VC want to fund in, because those are the games that, become the next Candy Crush. And that's what the VCs want. VCs aren't interested in a game that makes twice its dev cost and, makes you a happy living. They have no interest in that. They want a game that makes 500 times the development cost and becomes the next whatever. And if they don't think that they can push it to that, they're not going to invest in it. And so unless you're ready for that ride, investment doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, that being said, there's plenty of people who just want to go on that ride, and maybe that's interesting. So I don't put it down, but I think people misunderstand what it means to get invested in as a game studio. That's not a friendly, happy person that saw your game and believes in your dream and is going to come help you achieve your dream, right? That's a guy who has a bunch of somebody's money who thinks he sees a way to turn that money into a lot more money. And if it doesn't turn into that, you're not interesting to him, and he doesn't really care if you live or die. That's how VC investment really works.
That I think, man, that is exactly what you said. Is exactly right, and right to the point, man. That's why we are still I'm still using my own money for the game. We're still not getting any investment for now, because I think we can still do it. Then we'll see. But what you said is really true, man.
Again, I would say people in the Philippines have this wonderful, I hate to say it, an advantage, but coming from a country that has a very low cost of living, you have the ability to say, look, a couple of us are going to live with our parents, or, we're going to put a little bit of our savings away, and we're going to, eat a lot of rice for a while, and we're going to build up a demo. And you can go that second route. You can go that route where you go find somebody who's interested in publishing the game. There's not a lot of people publishing mobile games right now, but there's still people publishing PC games. Or, one of the things that you can do is you can put your stuff up on early access, right? You can get something that's fun and playable and interesting, put that up on early access, or put it up on Kickstarter. Kickstarter is kind of a shit show these days, but, early access is still a thing. There's a lot of ways for somebody coming from a place like the Philippines or Thailand, where you've got a really low cost of living, to use sweat equity in a way that's very difficult to use sweat equity, again, in a place like Seattle or London or somewhere where the cost of living is quite high. Especially, I see a lot of kids at a place like ESGS, and they're 21 years old. They're still living with their parents. Honestly, they ain't got a lot of expenses. Right?
Hey, Chris, I want to correct you there. We do live with our parents, so that's like 90% of the population there.
And I kicked out my mom from our old house. Then we
see, it's a reverse now.
Nice.
And I told my mom, can you live first in that small apartment there, and then we'll use the house. Okay, thank you.
But especially in the Philippines, where, like you say, a whole lot of people live in these sort of large family houses and whatnot, your ability to live real cheap for a while, if you want, is there.
True.
So your ability to build something through sweat equity is actually really high.
Yeah, and then I mean, if do have most, if you're like lived in the Philippines for a long time, you would have like a house that you don't pay rent. So that's like, okay, I don't need to pay rent. We'll just use this room here or this house here. So that's like, you see, like low cost. You could like
you're gonna use
lower
the family
cost.
computer.
Yeah, yeah. Use the old Atari there, you know.
Can you hold off on doing Facebook, Mom? Because we're on crunch time.
Yeah, you're hogging the internet. It's quite slow here.
That's how it is here. I mean, yeah, I mean, everything is, I think, you can call it an advantage, I guess, because we do, the Philippines is not that bombarded with all of these investment opportunities and all that. So most of the small time developers that we've actually spoken to in this show is like, most of them are like all friends. They just have one rich boss and all that. So they're a small team that's developing mobile games and all that. And they can still put in content that they actually want. And they're still not going the route of free-to-play microtransactions up to the wazoo and all that. So they're still purebred trying to learn the developing business, which is actually good and pure. As of the meantime, but
I don't mean to put it down. I mean, some people want to do free to play games, and if that's what you want to do, more power to you. Not my place to judge, right? I personally, I have a lot of trouble with free to play games. I get irritated with it sometimes, but I'm making one. I got 4 teams. One of my teams is making a free to play game. It's a thing in the industry that you kind of have to deal with, but it's nice for me. I literally just started another game in my studio. Like this week, we just kicked off a new product that we're self-funding and we're doing internal in the studio. And it is really nice to not have to answer to anyone. I sat down with my business partner, Alan, and we said, like, what do we want to build? Okay, this is what we want to build. How do we want to build it? We want to build it like this. And that was the end of the discussion. I didn't have to go to anyone and get it approved or make a business case for it or anything. And it's nice to have that kind of freedom.
Yeah. But since we're talking about like the Philippines, the dev situation here, I think, and you were talking about, investors and all that. The crowdfunding here, I think for tech or maybe for game devs, I think that part is also not that developed because I just checked it out. Kickstarter, Indiegogo is not allowed in the Philippines. So like if you're let's say you're a student, you want your game to be crowdfunded, it's pretty hard. I think there's only like 1 or 2 sites.
I'll be honest, crowdfunding these days is kind of a shit show anywhere.
Why is that? What happened?
Even in the States?
Yeah, pretty much worldwide. I mean, what happened was a lot of people who crowdfunded games got burnt. I
can see that. True. There's a lot of history on that.
Yeah, people put down money and they were made a lot of promises, and what they were promised never really happened. And now they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. And so I would say, if you're looking at crowdfunding as being your big solution anywhere, I'm not real excited about it. I mean, kind of the way crowdfunding works is if you are somebody famous, right? If you're like Chris Roberts, the guy who made Privateer, and you're going to make a new game, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you can crowdfund because people know who you are, right? Or if you've got a license that people know about, if you're like, hey, we've got the license to Munchkin and we're going to make the Munchkin game. All right, you can crowdfund. Or if you've got something that is, I guess, notorious enough that it would get press, like, we're making a game where I don't know.
Where you can be the Rock Man. It's called Mighty Number 9.
If it's something that like will just naturally pick up press because it's something really like out there.
Nostalgia, yeah.
All right, maybe. But really, other than those things, yeah, you're pretty much not going to crowdfund. Even if you're an American studio, I don't think there's a lot of great opportunity to crowdfund unless one of those things is true. Those are kind of your only 3 hopes
Mm-hmm. I think it was. I think it was even a risk for Shenmue 3 to be crowdfunded at first, right?
I've seen. I can't remember any offhand, but I've seen some stuff that had a license that I was like, oh yeah, that's going to get funded, and that didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, I've seen stuff get funded, and it's kind of it's not always a great thing to get funded. I mean, I've seen stuff get funded where they didn't ask for enough money, and suddenly they found themselves having made a lot of promises about what they could deliver, and then realizing they don't have nearly enough money to do what they thought they were going to do. I've certainly seen that happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of examples like Ouya.
Yep.
What else? Yeah, there's a lot.
Mighty Number 9 was the.
I bought that game. It wasn't so bad, but it's not as
I mean, I also paid some money there. I was like, I just wanted to play the next. What is this? So
it's just okay,
Yeah, I'm one of those that got burnt, probably in my opinion. I mean, yeah, I mean, I can understand where you're getting at, Chris. I mean, it is like now not only a risk to the developer, it's also a risk to the ones who's paying right now, because it's not as what it used to be. It's not, what do you call this, dreams come true Kickstarter anymore. So
no, it's not. It's really not.
Do you think this is why a game as famous as League of Legends would actually sell most of their, like 100% to like Tencent and all that? I mean, they weren't doing that bad before, even before Dota 2 actually got released. Do you think? I mean,
dude, when the garbage truck full of cash is big enough, then you sell, right? I mean, that's what Tencent has more money than God, right?
I know, I understand.
When Tencent drives that great big old 60-wheeler truck full of yen or what they got in China, yuan
RMB, yeah.
Yeah, and that when the RMB is in the billions, it doesn't matter what your history is. You sell because that's that's what you do. I mean, I got problems with China too, but you know what? If a Chinese company paid me enough, I'd sell to them.
Exactly.
Now, my grandfather used to tell me he'd sell his pants on Main Street if the price was right, and I mean that's the story. I mean, when Tencent rolls up with enough money, you sell, and you can argue about is it right or wrong or blah blah blah, but everyone's got a price, and it's usually a lot lower than you think it is.
That's a good point. You've been around. You've been to Hong Kong. You've actually known how it is there. Talking about the issue with Blizzard and all that, do you think if you were probably part of the team, do you think it was a justifiable move to actually treat I
think it's a more. I will say this. I think it's a more complicated issue than most people give it credit for. I think a lot of people got very reactive, and they were like, they're totally wrong and they're evil and blah blah blah. Well,
exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if that guy had finished his tournament and he had shown up and said like, "I love furries," they probably would have been like, "Hey, don't talk about furries in your victory announcement." Like, I'm not sure there's anything that you could have gotten really, hyped about on video that they wouldn't have been like, dude, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get in front of the video and say, thank you very much, and I appreciate my award, right? That's what that's how you're supposed to play those things, right? And so, and I think they actually signed something that says they won't make a big, hoopity-hoo. Now, that being said, looked at from the point of view of the guy who did it, right? If you're Hong Kongese right now, that's what you do, right? If I were him, I probably would have done the same thing. Let me rephrase. I would hope that I have the guts to do the same thing. I think there's both sides. Blizzard's got to look at. I mean, it's the same thing. You see what's going on with the NBA, right? It's the same story that
taking a knee and all that.
Well, no. In the NBA, there was a guy for what was it, Houston Rockets, who wrote the. He wrote the tweet about I support Hong Kong, and well, if you're the National Basketball Association, you get a lot of money from China right now, and
That's
you
correct.
do not want somebody saying, "I support Hong Kong" in the NBA.
Especially Houston Rockets.
Yeah. So they came down on him like a load of bricks, right? But this isn't really an academic issue for me. This is a real issue for me because one of my publishers, so I told you earlier, I have 4 teams working on projects. One of the projects I'm working on is I do virtual reality games, and I work with a publisher from Hong Kong. And so I actually go to Hong Kong almost every month. I work with people from Hong Kong literally every day. And this is affecting us. That's a publicly funded company, or not publicly. I'm sorry, that's a venture funded company. So they've taken money from venture capitalists, and those venture capitalists are out looking for more investment. And having Hong Kong catch on fire every Sunday is not really helping those efforts of getting more investment, right?
True.
It's a bad time to go out and shop your Hong Kong company right now. And that's it's a real thing that's affecting my business. It's not an academic issue for me. And I've been in Asia long enough. I've been in Asia something like 20 years now, and I've been to China many, many times. I've been to Hong Kong more times than I can count. And Hong Kong's got a very valid point. I mean, say what you will, Hong Kong right now sort of has freedom of speech. Hong Kong right now sort of has a lot of freedoms that Chinese people don't have. And they're looking at having a lot of them taken away, and they don't like it. And if you were looking at the Philippines becoming a Chinese colony in about 10 years, you might stand up and say, wait a minute, I kind of like voting. I kind of like having the freedom to say what I want to say without getting, thrown in a gulag somewhere and re-educated, which does happen in China. That's real. It's not, propaganda. So, the guys in Hong Kong have got a real point. And, that kid that stood up and, I kind of see where he's coming from. Maybe video games are important, but the freedom of your country is probably a little more important than video games. So I can see where his thought process went, and I kind of respect him for having the courage to do that. On Blizzard's side,
I think they're retracting now.
They are, but it's still a difficult position because you know what? If he had stood up and said, the hell with Hong Kong, China's right, Blizzard probably would have come down on him for that too, right?
Yeah.
I don't think Blizzard itself is a political company in that they care about this. I don't think Blizzard cares about China. They don't care about Hong Kong. They just don't want anyone to say anything political and get them in trouble. They want to remain apolitical. They want to remain an entertainment company that doesn't have an opinion about things.
That's correct. Yeah.
But do we live in a world right now today where it's okay to not have an opinion about things? We live in a world where entertainment companies are important. What we say in our entertainment and what we're allowed to say in our entertainment is very important. And Blizzard is one of the largest game companies in the world, and the games industry is by far the largest entertainment industry in the world. I don't think most people know that. If you look at revenue, the games industry does more revenue every year than every single movie in the world combined.
That's right.
I heard about it. Like it's overtaken the movie industry, right?
The movie industry, it's larger than all professional sports combined. You take the NFL, the NBA, the National Hockey League, all those guys that play cricket in India, you put all of that together, and it's still less than the international games industry, right? We are the largest entertainment industry. And so as the largest entertainment industry, we probably should have opinions. We're way more powerful as a social entity than I think anyone gives us credit for.
Yeah.
And it's not just revenue. If you look at how much, we were just talking about the podcast. If you look at how much time somebody spends playing video games right now compared to how much time they watch TV, how much time they read magazines, how much time they read books, by far games wins, right?
Yep.
So you're looking at something that people are spending money on. You're looking at something that people are spending a lot of time on. So are these entertainment companies, and Blizzard is by far one of the largest of them, do they have a responsibility to take a stand on social issues in a world where these social issues are becoming increasingly important? It's a real question, right?
That's a good question, yeah. I mean, people expect it from them anyway right now because, I mean, like you said, we're the largest entertainment industry. That also, and that wouldn't be possible if we didn't have a large audience. So that is expected from a lot of the games companies right now. So that's why every move, like all these large gaming companies like EA, Blizzard, Bethesda, and all that, it's being looked at under a microscope by their audience, which are, I mean, millions right now. I mean, we can even say billions because of China and all that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're being looked at by everyone. So,
but one thing that's happening different in China than in most places, right? I mean, come on, I'm an American and Trump is an asshole. We all know that, right? That guy is. That guy has no business being president. But here's the thing. Everyone in the world says the guy's got no right to be except for the crazy Trump supporters. But the point is, I can stand up in Main Street and hold up a sign that says Trump is a complete fucking idiot, and I don't get hauled off to jail, right? As whatever you want to say about America and Trump, I have the right to stand up in America and call Trump an idiot, right? Stephen Colbert goes on the TV every night and calls Trump an idiot, right? And nobody shuts Stephen Colbert's show down, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
you can't do that shit in China.
That's right.
You can't be on TV and talk shit about the government in China. And increasingly, you can't make anything bad about China, even if you're not Chinese, because the Chinese market is so big that you don't want to offend them. And that level of censorship is really concerning because that is a real question. Where are your values, right?
That's right.
And this is where the NBA or Blizzard has to look and say, well, it is obvious right now that people in China do not have freedom of speech. That is an obvious thing, right? They have a firewall that says you can't watch a bunch of stuff on their internet, right? There's all kinds of examples of a lack of freedom of speech in China. And so knowing that and knowing that your stuff is going to get censored if you say something bad about China, you as an entertainment provider have a choice. Am I going to put that stuff in my game or my movie or my whatever anyway and know that I'm going to lose the money from not being able to sell it in China? Or am I going to self-censor myself to appease China so that I can earn, all that money from the Chinese companies? And
it's
I don't know. That's a hard question for a company that's a public company, right? For me, I'll say whatever the hell I want. I'll go on a podcast and say China sucks and Trump sucks. I can do that, right? Because I don't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
But if you're the CEO of Blizzard, you were put in that position by the chairman of the board, and the board is responsible to the shareholders, and the shareholders, they may not, they invested in your company with the idea that they were going to get a higher rate of return. And if you're making decisions based on, your morals that costs them money, that's a very hard stance to take. You're probably going to lose your job.
That's right. Yeah.
It's very difficult for a public company to have morals, I guess.
And Chris, you were saying, I'm just thinking now, if it was in reverse, let's say a Chinese player said Hong Kong should not be free, I'm sure that they wouldn't ban him.
I don't know.
I'm thinking like China would say, yeah, that's fine.
China would say fine, but I think there would have been enough people in the West that would have been pissed off.
Okay, that would be, the Western side would get pissed off.
Yeah, I mean, I think, looking at it from the point of view of the executive board at Blizzard, they just don't want anyone to notice them politically. That's what they want.
Yeah.
But that's concerning to me that one of the largest providers of one of the largest forms of entertainment is unwilling or unable to take a political stand. Right? We're entertainment. If I were to look at movies, right, and it's the same shit's happening in movies too. I don't know. There's a great example of there was a movie. You guys don't remember this. There was a movie back when I was a kid called Red Dawn, and The idea of the movie was that the
old Red Dawn or the new Red Dawn?
Well, that's the thing. There was the old Red Dawn, and in the old Red Dawn, it was the Soviet Union came to America.
Yeah,
right?
and the new Red Dawn is like North Korea.
Right. And the thing is, when they originally made the new one, it was China. Right. When they originally made the new one, they wrote it. They actually filmed it so that China, because fucking North Korea is not going to attack America. That's not a viable story, right? But China attacking America, okay, maybe that's a viable story. So the original story was that China attacked America. They got halfway through filming it, and then somebody said, "Holy shit, we can't sell this in China if we do this." And they went back and they redid everything and made it North Korea because who gives a shit if you can sell your game in North Korea, right? So this kind of editing is already happening in Hollywood where, Hollywood doesn't have, the Washington did not censor Hollywood. The American government didn't censor Hollywood. No government told Hollywood, you can't make China the bad guy in a movie.
Yeah.
But when was the last time you saw a movie where China was the bad guy, right?
Yeah, you're saying. I'm noticing that. I'm even telling John that nowadays, if you see, call it like a B movie or something, like a monster movie that that's not going to sell or whatnot, like Sharknado or something like that. But there's this movie. I think it starred Jason Statham and all that. It's called The Meg. And I was like seeing that, and it was like, this is not going to sell. Why is Jason Statham in it? And then I saw how big the movie was budgeted because there was a bunch of Chinese national actors there. Yep. These are not Hong Kong actors. And these are Chinese national actors that couldn't even probably speak that much English. They just need to learn it. And they were speaking Chinese the entire movie. It was like, okay, these types of movies, and there are a lot of them, they're being funded right now by Chinese money. And just because they're trying to infiltrate everything, because it's still money. You're getting money back and all that. So, this business
that's an example I'm not so bothered by, right? You want to, to be fair to China, they are like a fourth of the world, right?
Yeah.
So there ought to be more Chinese people in movies.
That's
China
right.
Ought to show up more movies. China, China ought to have a much bigger seat at the table than it has. China ought to have a bigger voice at the UN. People get very worried about, oh my God, China's becoming powerful. They're a fourth of the world. They're supposed to be powerful, right? If they're not, it would be perfectly unfair to Chinese people.
Yeah.
But on the other side, it's not a great country to be powerful. The leadership of that country is not real great,
I know, yeah. Except for that, everything is okay, right? That's the thing. The line is drawn somewhere by someone when it comes to releasing content that is against the Chinese national or the Chinese national government and all that. I'm not really sure what they call it, or the party itself. If it's against their values and they put enough money in it, they will say something. But where does the line get drawn? Particularly, like you said, Blizzard is like a neutral, apolitical company that's trying to be that because they only want to do is sell games, make great games and sell games. They don't want a piece of this political pie in any way. They do have a responsibility right now because, like you also said, we're the largest entertainment industry. But that's, I think, where a lot of people, gamers, developers, and everything, are questioning, are asking a lot of questions. Where does the line get drawn? Do we take enough money? Because money is okay, but where does our own stand as a company, as a vision, as a mission of our company? Where does the shareholders make their decision or encroach on our own decisions on what exactly to do? So I think that's the entire turmoil here that's being questioned and is shaking up the gaming industry as a whole. That's why the name Tencent comes up when they're just the same as, what do you call this? Who's this company again that's taking over, that almost took over Ubisoft before? That's...
I'm not sure who you're talking about here.
There was this company that was trying to take over...
Ubisoft
before, I think starts with a V. I forgot.
Vivendi back in the day?
Yeah, Vivendi back in the day and all that.
Yeah, that was a while ago, though.
Yeah, so there was it there. I mean, Tencent is just the same as that company where they're just buying up a lot of stocks because they just want to make money and all that. But Tencent has this other side of it, like you said, that is about because not really sure if everybody knows that most of the Chinese companies have a stake, or the what do you call this? The party has a stake on it, and all that. It has a say to whatever their decisions make, even if it's privately.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the heart of China. You can't do anything in China without the Chinese government approving it, right? I mean,
that's right.
True.
Whether they own part of your company or not, I mean, if Tencent starts doing stuff the Chinese government doesn't like, the Chinese government will just rescind all their. I mean, what was it? About a year and a half ago, you remember basically the Chinese government said we're just not going to approve any video games.
No,
it was like damn near a year you couldn't release a game in China just because the government put its foot down, right? I mean, that's
they right now. I think that was something last year or 2 years ago.
Something like that, yeah.
If you want to release a game, a mobile game in China, it has to go through there's this new process that it has to go through the government for approval.
Well, that's always been the case. You've always had to get it approved by the government.
No, before it didn't have.
They just stopped approving them.
Before it's kind of like in the air, and then they kind of made it like public. Okay, here's the new rule. Now you have to submit. If it was a mobile game, you have to submit a mobile phone with your game, and then that phone, if we approve it or not, you're not gonna get the phone back. So there's like really rules written out.
No, it was pretty ham-fisted, I mean but that's the thing. I mean, it's always been the case that if the government doesn't approve of what you're doing, you don't get to do it, right? That's not new.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with one thing. That is a very interesting time on what's going to happen next and how this issue is going to, because I'm thinking it's just another news cycle, but it's very interesting on where this China question is going to take the gaming industry, because I think they are really a good decision, particularly in terms of money and investment and all that, for like small studios that are trying to do great, but they just don't have the bullets to actually keep going. I'm not really seeing a huge takeover by these companies, or Tencent itself and taking over these companies. They just have a lot of money on a lot of the gaming industry companies, but it's really interesting how this issue will take that question, as you said, Chris. If gaming companies as big as Blizzard will actually make a stance on something. So
I can answer that for you right now. All right. If you think Blizzard's going to come out against China, I got some bridges in Brooklyn to sell you. That's not going to happen. Right? That's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it won't.
I mean, we're only talking about Blizzard. We're not even talking about EA. Woo!
That's just simply not going to happen. The market is just too huge. If the day that EA comes out against the Chinese government, that's no.
Yeah, I wonder how Google Stadia is going to sell in the.
Google's tried to fight it. Google for a while tried to fight it. I mean, you still can't. I mean, every time I go to China, it's really hard because my whole studio runs on Google Docs and stuff. And every time I go to China, I got to get a VPN, and the VPN never works. It's
Google got pissed off, and then they just like, okay, we quit. But now I think they're like trying to go back and trying to like.
They're trying to win back China again. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think they're gonna go in.
Huawei is
the thing is, there's another side to this, of course, that China doesn't really want. It's not just that China doesn't want Google in because, freedom and whatnot. Yeah. China doesn't want Google in because China wants to develop its own homebrewed Google. And it's realized that by putting these great big firewalls up, they can support, local companies. I mean, it's really funny. Nobody but Chinese people use WeChat. But oh my God, in China, everybody uses WeChat, and they use it for everything. I mean, you buy stuff with WeChat.
That's correct.
You transfer money with WeChat. Who the hell outside of China uses WeChat, right? But that's, they've managed to grow that whole thing because a whole bunch of other, WeChat alternatives aren't allowed in China. So you use WeChat.
Yeah.
You know.
Ray has a lot of experience with WeChat, right?
Yeah, I have WeChat. Of course I do.
Yeah.
Got some money there as well. No, yeah. WeChat is kind of now called the super app in China, wherein you can do everything in WeChat. You got WeChat Pay. You can book things. You can book. You can do it's social. Everything there. You don't need to go out of WeChat. You don't need other apps if you pay stuff, banking, everything.
That's every American tech company's dream, right? I mean, Google has that dream. If they could only convince a whole lot of people to use Google to pay their stuff and all that, that'd be good. You're in the middle of it, Chris, because you actually represent both hemispheres here. You work in an Asian, which is a totally different culture and handling things, and then you actually are a Western yourself. So I mean,
I kind of left most of that Westernness aside, though. I don't feel we're a Western these days.
Let's go back to you guys. I mean, how are you guys preparing? I mean, Chris, you won't be on ESGS this year, but will you be? I mean, one of your guys is Boomsap.
So we have a booth. We're going to actually be on the main stage. We're actually going to be demoing our game on the main stage in front of a bunch of people. We're going to do a live tournament where you can actually watch us play multiplayer.
Cool.
There on the live stage. I think we're actually opening the main stage. I think we're the first game to be on the main stage. I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah. What day is that? You guys?
Friday. I want to say is that the first day that the first public day?
That's the first public day. Friday.
Yeah, I want to say it's on Friday. Yeah. So I've got a whole bunch of my staff being there at any given time. I think I'm gonna have about 5 people on the floor at the booth. So yeah, it's a great game. It's a strategy game. It's turn based. It's got hexes. It's sort of a post apocalyptic fantasy setting. We got orcs and chainsaws and big walking robots. It's a pretty cool game. I'm pretty excited about it. It's come a long way since last year. So we're right now beavering away trying to get the tutorials all fixed. I mean, that's the big thing before you go to a game show is you want to because nobody plays a game at a game show for more than about 10 or 15 minutes, right? So you want to make sure that the 10 or 15 minutes that they play are really, really good. So we're working really, really hard on getting the first, half hour of the game. So it's really, really nice. I'm afraid my team won't be sleeping much this weekend.
I have a question, though. All right, this is a good question for you. Do you think your new game will actually overshadow or probably overtake Legends of Kalasia? Because
I'm certain of it. I'm downright certain of it. Because Legends of Kalasia didn't make that much money. Reason one, Legends of Kalasia was not a great financial success. But reason two, I mean, for us, this game was, when we finished Kalasia, we kind of had 3 options. One, we were like, well, we could keep working on Kalasia and try to fix all the stuff that's broken with it. But a lot of stuff was really broken down at the core. 2, we could make a Kalasia 2 and kind of make a new version of Kalasia. Or 3, we could make a new game with everything that we learned from having made Kalasia. And we went with option 3. And so Last Regiment, I mean, its sort of spiritual reason to exist is after we made Legends of Kalasia and I kind of finished my first strategy game, I was like, here's what I've learned. Here's what I now know about making strategy games. And I'm going to put it all into a new game. And, top to bottom, it plays better. It looks better. It's just, on every metric, it's a superior game. So I'm really excited about it. We've been kind of low key about it so far because I wanted to get it to a really good shape. We put it in early access. We didn't do a big press blitz or anything when we put it in early access because I wanted to give it, a couple months to kind of breathe and make some big changes to it. We did. We made a bunch of really big adjustments after early access because we got some really great feedback from early access. But I think we're just now entering into the point where I'm going to start, doing the big press blitz and trying to get people to YouTube it and whatnot. And I think people are really going to enjoy it when they see it.
All right. Awesome news. I mean, are we expecting an announcement from your other project or not yet?
Not until next year. Not until into next year.
All right. Exciting.
We literally started it this week.
Yeah, exciting.
I'm literally working on the game design doc in the background during this conversation. That's actually happening right now.
All right. So, guys, I mean, go ahead and check out Boomzap's booth on ESGS on Friday, and they'll be doing a presentation and all that. So, hope you guys will be there. They're selling codes, right, and everything.
Yep, we're gonna be selling codes right there at the booth, cash in hand. I can't take credit cards.
All right, Rainier, you will be seeing you there. Also, the entire ESGS, right?
Yes. We also have, so you can see also just like a small demo of the game, and visit us there.
All right, what's the name of the booth that they'll be visiting?
Spasm Studios.
All right, Spasm with an X. Okay, so
With an X.
go ahead and check it out. Do you have a name for the game yet?
Yes, we do. We're calling it BPO Alpha Agent.
Jesus, this is gonna be fun because I mean, as you know, Chris, we have a population here in Metro Manila that's all BPO agents or call center agents.
Yeah, I'm actually. It sounds like a pretty cool game. Actually, it's a nice idea.
Yeah, so we're going for that. So let's see how it goes.
All right. So we'll both seeing you guys on ESGS. We'll follow Boomzap and Spasm Studios on ESGS coming this Friday. Thank you very much for being here, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Talking about everything. All right. Yeah, we learned a lot again from you.
Yeah.
Make sure you're taking notes, Rainier.
Yes, I learned a lot. You should be there, Chris. So I like to talk more. But next
should be
time
there
you're
on
in
Skype.
Manila, man, let me know. We could like have coffee or something.
Yeah, I will. I won't be there this year, but next year.
All right. Thank you very much, Chris. All right. Thank you very much lahat ng nakinig. Thank you very much sa pakikinig sa inyo. Medyo English tayo ngayon. Pero salamat sa pakikinig and wag masyadong puro kalor. You have a great night, guys.